Greetings, this is Darkmaster491, and today I'm showcasing my Weakness Policy Cinderace in some Series 7 ranked double battles. Here's the team that I'll be using along with the rental code so you can try out this team for yourself. Also, I made timestamps for this video, so if you want to skip ahead to the battles, you can click on any of the timestamps which you can find in the description for this video. Now let's talk about this team. This is the team that I built myself, and I've got a lot of strong physical sweepers on this team. There's the Dragapult and Mamoswine, which are both immune to Intimidate. There's the Thundurus-Incarnate, which has the Defiant ability, so the attack drop from Intimidates will activate the Defiant ability, which will increase my Thundurus' attack by 2 stages. There's the Urshifu Single Strike, which doesn't even care if it's intimidated since it's got the Wicked Blow attack, which will always get critical hits. I also have Clefairy on the team for Friend Guard support and Redirection support with the move Follow Me. But today, I'll be showcasing the Dragapult and Cinderace mode of this team, where we have the Surf and Weakness Policy combo. To execute this combo, I would have my Dragapult use the move Surf, which would hit Cinderace as well as both of the opposing Pokemon. So I don't have to worry about redirection moves such as Follow Me or Rage Powder, since Surf is a spread move, which also damages your ally Pokemon. Since Surf is a water type move and Cinderace is weak to water type moves, this would activate my Cinderace's weakness policy, which would give my Cinderace a +2 boost to its attack and special attack, and then my Cinderace would get big damage of its attacks. Of course, only the +2 attack boost matters, since my Cinderace is a physical sweeper. Dragapult is a ghost type Pokemon, so it is immune to the move Fake Out, since Fake Out is a normal type move. So Dragapult is a pretty useful support Pokemon. My Dragapult has a Focus Sash item in case an opposing Urshifu tries to knock out my Dragapult with a Sucker Punch. So my Dragapult would survive that attack thanks to its Focus Sash item, and I would still be able to pull off the Surf and Weakness Policy combo with my Dragapult and Cinderace. So let's get to the battles now so you can see the Weakness Policy Cinderace in action. In this first battle, my opponent is going to lead with a Regirock and a Porygon 2, while I'm going to lead with my Cinderace and my Dragapult. I'm expecting the Porygon 2 to try and set up a Trick Room, so I'm going to target the Porygon 2 with my Cinderace to try to knock it out before it can set up a Trick Room. Porygon 2 is very bulky thanks to its Eviolite item, but a boosted +2 attack high jump kick from my Cinderace will always get the KO on Porygon 2. However, I am a bit concerned about the opposing Regirock since it may potentially have the Weakness Policy item as well, which will also get activated if my Dragapult uses Surf. So I'm going to Gigantamax my Cinderace so that I can survive a potential +2 max Rockfall after I use Max Knuckle on the opposing Porygon 2. Now I'm going to have my Dragapult use Surf to activate my Cinderace's Weakness Policy, which will give my Cinderace a +2 boost to its attack. Thankfully, the Regirock does not have the Weakness Policy item, and it doesn't even Dynamax this turn. Max Knuckle actually does less damage than High Jump Kick, but thankfully my Gigantamax Cinderace is able to knock out the Porygon 2 with a boosted +2 attack Max Knuckle. This gives my Gigantamax Cinderace and my Dragapult a +1 boost to their attack, so my Gigantamax Cinderace is looking really threatening now with +3 attack. The Regirock is going to use Curse, giving it a +1 boost to its attack and a +1 boost to its defense, which is a good play by my opponent, and the -1 in speed for the Curse would have been perfect if they were able to set up the Trick Room. Now my opponent is going to send in the Excadrill, which is kind of strange since my Gigantamax Cinderace could easily knock it out with a Max Knuckle. But there is one play that my opponent could make this turn, which is to have the Excadrill use Protect and to Dynamax the Regirock and use Max Rockfall to set up the Sandstorm for Excadrill. And then the Excadrill would outspeed my Cinderace if it has the Sand Rush ability, so I'm going to double into the Regirock to try to knock it out before I can use Max Rockfall. The opposing Excadrill uses Protect as I predicted. I'm going to have my Dragapult use Dragon Darts, which will automatically target the Regirock since the Excadrill uses Protect. So the Dragon Darts will deal some chip damage to the opposing Dynamax Regirock, and my Gigantamax Cinderace would deal big damage to the opposing Dynamax Regirock with a boosted +3 attack Max Steel Spike. The Dynamax Regirock barely survives, and my Gigantamax Cinderace and Dragapult will receive a +1 boost to their defense, which will make it more difficult for my opponent to knock them out with physical attacks. The Regirock is going to try to get big damage onto my Gigantamax Cinderace with a boosted +1 attack max Rockfall, but my Gigantamax Cinderace will take the hit really well thanks to its +1 boost in defense, and also because my Cinderace is a Steel type now thanks to its Libero ability. And the max Rockfall will set up the Sandstorm for Excadrill. The opposing Dynamax Regirock uses Max Guard, so it seems that the opposing Excadrill might use Earthquake, but I'm going to have my Dragapult use Ally Switch anyways in case the opposing Excadrill targets my Gigantamax Cinderace with a high horsepower, which is exactly what my opponent does, but it gets redirected to my Dragapult thanks to the Ally Switch, and my Dragapult takes the attack pretty well thanks to its +1 boost in defense for the Max Steel Spike last turn. Now I'm going to try to knock out the opposing Excadrill with a Max Knuckle for my Gigantamax Cinderace, but the opposing Excadrill is going to survive on 1 HP since it has the Focus Sash item. And my Dragapult and Cinderace will get another +1 boost to their attack, which brings my Cinderace up to +4 attack. My Cinderace's Gigantamax turns end, but even if the opposing Excadrill uses Earthquake now, it cannot knock out both of my Pokemon since my Cinderace would survive the Earthquake at the amount of HP it currently has thanks to the +1 boost in defense. The opposing Excadrill is going to try to knock out my Dragapult with an Iron Head, but my Dragapult barely survives thanks to its +1 boost in defense, and my Dragapult will knock out the opposing Excadrill and the opposing Dynamax Regirock with a Dragon Dart attack. And I'm going to have my Cinderace use Iron Head to change its type to Steel, so it doesn't take any Sandstorm damage. The Sandstorm is going to finish off my Dragapult, and I'm going to send in my Clefairy to give my Cinderace Friend Guard support and redirection support with the move Follow Me. My opponent is going to send out their last Pokemon, which is Rillaboom, but the Rillaboom cannot beat my Cinderace at this point, so my opponent is going to forfeit the battle. In this next battle, my opponent is going to lead with Porygon 2 and Rillaboom, while I'm going to lead with my Cinderace and my Dragapult. I'll need to knock out the opposing Porygon 2 to prevent it from setting up a potential Trick Room, but the opposing Rillaboom could potentially go for a Fake Out onto my Cinderace. So I'm going to Gigantamax my Cinderace, and I'm going to have my Dragapult use Surf, which will activate my Cinderace's Weakness Policy, which will allow my Cinderace to get big damage onto the opposing Porygon 2 with a boosted +2 attack Max Knuckle. A +2 attack high jump kick for my Cinderace would guarantee the KO onto the Porygon 2, but I don't want to take the risk that the opposing Rillaboom might use Fake Out on my Cinderace. So I'd rather make a safe play and Gigantamax my Cinderace. Even if the Porygon 2 has max HP and max defense with a Bold Nature or Relaxed Nature, a Max Knuckle at +2 attack for my Gigantamax Cinderace would have a 25% chance to knock it out after the chip damage from my Dragapult's Surf attack. It depends on how physically defensive the opposing Porygon 2 is, but I have at least a 25% chance to knock out the Porygon 2. So my Gigantamax Cinderace is able to knock out the opposing Porygon 2 with a Max Knuckle at +2 attack, and my Gigantamax Cinderace and my Dragapult will get a +1 boost to their attack. The opposing Rillaboom will use Knockoff, which will bring my Dragapult down to its Focus Sash. My Dragapult and my Gigantamax Cinderace will get a little bit of HP recovery from the grassy terrain, and the opposing Rillaboom will get a little bit of HP recovery from the grassy terrain as well. Now my opponent is going to send in the Rotom-Heat, which could try and set up with a nasty plot, but my opponent has to respect the fact that my Gigantamax Cinderace is at +3 attack, and my Gigantamax Cinderace could easily knock out the opposing Rotom-Heat with a Max Knuckle at +3 attack if my opponent does not Dynamax the Rotom-Heat. So my opponent is going to Dynamax the Rotom-Heat, recognizing that my Gigantamax Cinderace is a huge threat to their team, since they need to try and get big damage onto my Gigantamax Cinderace. I'm expecting my opponent to double into my Gigantamax Cinderace, so I'm going to have my Dragapult use Ally Switch to try and redirect one of my opponent's attacks. And I'm able to redirect the Grassy Glide from the opposing Rillaboom into my Dragapult, which will finish off my Dragapult.
Now I could easily knock out the Rillaboom with a G-Max Fireball, but I want my Gigantamax Cinderace to continue boosting its attack with Max Knuckle so that I'll have an easier time dealing with the Dynamax Rotom-Heat. My Gigantamax Cinderace is able to knock out the opposing Rillaboom with a Max Knuckle at +3 attack, and the opposing Dynamax Rotom-Heat is going to try and get big damage onto my Gigantamax Cinderace with a Max Flare, but my Gigantamax Cinderace is going to take the hit pretty well. And the Max Flare will set up the Sun, which will increase the power of Fire type attacks. And now I'm going to send in my Clefairy, while my opponent is going to send in the Gastrodon. I'm going to have my Clefairy redirect some attacks with the move Follow Me. And my Gigantamax Cinderace is going to knock out the opposing Gastrodon with a Max Knuckle at +4 attack, which is going to give my Gigantamax Cinderace another boost in attack, bringing it up to +5 attack. The opposing Dynamax Rotom-Heat is going to try to target my Gigantamax Cinderace with another Max Flare, but it's going to get redirected to my Clefairy thanks to the move Follow Me. My Gigantamax Cinderace and my Clefairy will get a little bit of HP recovery from the grassy terrain, and that will be the end of my Cinderace's Gigantamax turns. And now, with +5 attack, and with the Helping Hand support for my Clefairy, my Cinderace is going to knock out the Dynamax Rotom in one hit with a high jump kick, and that will be the end of the game. So I got an amazing Cinderace sweep in this battle. In this next battle, my opponent is going to lead with Lapras and Raichu, while I'm going to lead with my Cinderace and my Dragapult. I'm going to knock out the Raichu first, since the Raichu is threatening my Cinderace with a potential Nuzzle attack, which would paralyze my Cinderace. I'm going to Gigantamax my Cinderace and use the Surf and Weakness Policy combo to increase my Gigantamax Cinderace's attack by 2 stages, and then my Gigantamax Cinderace will knock out the opposing Raichu with a Max Knuckle at +2 attack. The Surf is also important here since it breaks a potential Focus Sash that the opposing Raichu may have, so my Gigantamax Cinderace can finish it off with a Max Knuckle. My opponent is going to Gigantamax the Lapras, so I'm thinking it might be a Weakness Policy Lapras. A Max Knuckle at +2 attack for my Gigantamax Cinderace does not get the KO on Gigantamax Lapras, so it does not make sense for me to target the Gigantamax Lapras until my Gigantamax Cinderace has enough attack power to knock it out in one hit. The Gigantamax Lapras uses Max Guard, so that definitely means that the Raichu is going to try to nuzzle my Gigantamax Cinderace, but I'm not going to let that happen. My Dragapult will use Surf, which will get some chip damage onto the Raichu and activate my Cinderace's Weakness Policy, increasing its attack by 2 stages. And now my Cinderace will finish off the opposing Raichu with a Max Knuckle at +2 attack. The Max Knuckle will also give my Gigantamax Cinderace and my Dragapult a +1 boost in attack. So now my Gigantamax Cinderace is at +3 attack, and my Dragapult is at +1 attack. Now my opponent is going to send in the Dragapult, and it's actually a Choice Specs Dragapult, which is going to get massive damage onto my Gigantamax Cinderace with a Choice Specs Draco Meteor. Thankfully, my Cinderace is able to survive the Draco Meteor at 55 HP, and my Dragapult will get big damage onto the opposing Dragapult with Dragon Darts at +1 attack, as well as some chip damage onto the opposing Gigantamax Lapras, which guarantees that I'll be able to knock out the Gigantamax Lapras with a Max Knuckle at +3 attack for my Gigantamax Cinderace. And the Max Knuckle also gives my Gigantamax Cinderace and my Dragapult another +1 boost to their attack. So now my Gigantamax Cinderace is at +4 attack, and my Dragapult is at +2 attack. Now my opponent is going to send in the Kartana, but with the opposing Dragapult at -2 special attack and Kartana, there's not much my opponent can do at this point. So my opponent is going to forfeit the battle. And here's the final battle of this video. My opponent is going to lead with Indeedee-Male and Tyranitar, while I'm going to lead with my Cinderace and my Dragapult. My Cinderace threatens the opposing Tyranitar with a high jump kick or max knuckle, so I'm going to predict that my opponent will switch out the Tyranitar and try to set up a Trick Room with the Indeedee. Since the opposing Tyranitar's Sandstream activated before the opposing Indeedee's Psychic Surge ability, the Tyranitar seems to be a Choice Scarf Tyranitar, but my Cinderace is faster than max speed Jolly Nature Choice Scarf Tyranitar, so the Tyranitar doesn't really threaten my Cinderace. My opponent switches out the Tyranitar as I expected, and they switch in Torkoal, so I'm pretty sure the Indeedee is probably going to try to set up a Trick Room, but I'm going to knock out the Indeedee and prevent it from setting up a potential Trick Room. The Torkoal's Drought actually helps me since my Dragapult will do less damage to my Gigantamax Cinderace with Surf, since the power of Water-type moves gets reduced when the harsh sunlight weather is in effect. So I'm going to do the same thing as usual, which is to have my Dragapult use Surf to activate my Gigantamax Cinderace's Weakness Policy and sweep my opponent's team with my Gigantamax Cinderace. The Surf will also break a potential Focus Sash if the Indeedee has a Focus Sash, so my Gigantamax Cinderace can knock out the Indeedee with a Max Steel Spike at +2 attack. The Max Steel Spike will also give my Gigantamax Cinderace and my Dragapult a +1 boost to their defense. Now my opponent is going to send in the Venusaur, which is going to outspeed my Gigantamax Cinderace since the harsh sunlight weather is in effect, and the opposing Venusaur has the Chlorophyll ability, which doubles its speed when the harsh sunlight weather is in effect. So the Venusaur threatens my Gigantamax Cinderace with a potential Sleep Powder or Max Quake if the Venusaur Gigantamaxes, and my opponent is going to Gigantamax the Venusaur to try and get some big damage onto my Gigantamax Cinderace with a Max Quake, but I'm going to predict that and have my Dragapult use Ally Switch to redirect the Max Quake into my Dragapult. The Max Quake is going to do big damage to my Dragapult. The opposing Gigantamax Venusaur and Torkoal will get a +1 boost to their special defense. But now, my Gigantamax Cinderace will knock out the Gigantamax Venusaur with a Sun boosted G-Max Fireball at +2 attack. And my Gigantamax Cinderace got a critical hit with that G-Max Fireball, so my Cinderace was really angry and wanted to destroy that Gigantamax Venusaur. The opposing Torkoal is going to try to get some big damage with an Eruption, but my Cinderace will resist the attack since it's a Fire type now. The Eruption knocks out my Dragapult since my Dragapult is at low HP, but my Dragapult did an amazing job in this battle. Now I'm going to send in my Clefairy while my opponent is going to send in the Tyranitar, which will change the weather to the Sandstorm weather. I'm going to target the opposing Torkoal with my Gigantamax Cinderace and knock out the opposing Torkoal with a Helping Hand boosted Max Knuckle at +2 attack. It's better for me to use Max Knuckle on the Torkoal rather than Max Airstream, since if I were to use Max Airstream on the Torkoal, that would allow the opposing Tyranitar to get super effective damage onto my Gigantamax Cinderace with a Rock Slide, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm able to knock out the opposing Torkoal with a Max Knuckle for my Gigantamax Cinderace, and the opposing Tyranitar uses Rock Slide as I expected, which doesn't do much damage to my Gigantamax Cinderace since it's a fighting type now. My Gigantamax Cinderace and my Clefairy will take a little bit of damage from the Sandstorm, and that will be the end of my Cinderace's Gigantamax turns. And now, my Cinderace will knock out the Tyranitar with a Helping Hand boosted Iron Head at +3 attack, and that will be the end of the battle. So I got another amazing Cinderace sweep in this battle. Here's the rental code for the team once again. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you have any questions or comments about my team, be sure to leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my Weakness Policy Cinderace showcase, and I'll catch you all next time.